We are a few days away from figuring out the final rosters for the Canadian and U.S. Olympic teams. So let's predict them.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Monday, December 29th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the nation's #1 sports podcasting network, and it is your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez, the host of the show, and you can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. So, Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show to discuss some things in the world of the Florida Panthers. In the case of this episode, today is going to be about the U.S. and Canadian Olympic roster. So it's not as much of everything related to the Florida Panthers, only some on this specific show. So for episodes to wrap up the month of December and then on to January, where we will be covering the Winter Classic. If you missed yesterday's show with Cassie Coviello of Chicken to Stands, make sure to check out Sunday's episode, as we had a Sunday drop. Today is the Monday drop of the show, and then the next few days we will have the post-game shows for the Caps game and the Habs game, and then we are on to the Winter Classic. Today we are going to predict the rosters. Segment number 1 is going to be USA. Segment number 2 is going to be Canada. And then segment number 3 is going to be some of the bubble players and my opinions on leaving some of them out and possibly their cases for making it in. Because chances are the predictions that I'm going to bring forth to you in just a few seconds probably won't be accurate, more than likely. This is why we have predictions, and we are more, chances are we are going to be incorrect on them. But the difference between the Olympics and the Four Nations from what we witnessed last February is the fact that the NHL, it was an NHL sanctioned event. It was just a week and a half versus the 2.5 weeks that we are going to see for the Milano Cortina Olympics, as you have seen, with the very compressed schedule, which includes the back-to-back even tonight between the Panthers, Capitals, and then tomorrow against the Habs. We are seeing multiple of these 15 back-to-backs as the Panthers and the NHL are trying to wrap up the regular season by mid-April. So the Olympics start on February 6th, but the hockey games, at least for the men's side, do not start until February 11th, which some games will start as early as 6:10 a.m. and some of them as late as 3:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The championship game for the gold medal will be actually at 8:10 a.m. The whole schedule is up there if you guys want to look that up. But 25 players for each roster, so chances are it's going to be 14 forwards, 8 defensemen, and 3 goaltenders. Double IHF rules, so they're a little bit more strict when it comes to some of the hits, body checks, which we saw in one of the World Junior games more recently for Team Canada that had one player thrown out of the game. And let's not also forget that the rink is going to be a little smaller for Milano Cortina, as it's going to be around 196 feet by 85. So the neutral zones are going to be the ones that are going to be smaller. The ends of the ice are going to be about the same as far as NHL length. And we don't even, and the projection is going to be that it's going to be finished 3 days before the actual games take place in Milan. So let's go right into the USA roster for what I have predicted. And the first 4 names, as far as the forwards, are going to be the names that were already the first 6 for the US roster. So the first 4 names: Jack Eichel, Brady Tkachuk, Matthew Tkachuk, and Austin Matthews. Those are the first four of 6 of the forwards that were named to Team USA's roster. So some of the other players, so there are 10 remaining players that are going to be named here for the forwards for Team USA. And here is my prediction on who is going to be on the team. So Jake Gensel, I have him returning for Team USA, a guy who could definitely play that bumper position on the power play for Team USA. Jack Hughes, although he struggled in last year's Four Nations face-off, I do believe that the upside is quite there for Jack Hughes, and you would be missing quite a lot if he is out of the lineup. Although he did miss a few weeks with the off-ice injury due to at a team dinner, I do believe that Jack Hughes is going to be back with Team USA. Also, he is back with the New Jersey Devils, as he was sorely missed, as they were their record was very poor with him out of the lineup. Dylan Larkin, I have him on the team. Probably the best defensive player for Team USA. Played an outstanding role on the fourth line last year for the Americans there. So I have Dylan Larkin returning to Team USA under head coach Mike Sullivan and GM Bill Guerin. JT Miller is another guy that I have on the team. A lot of guys are thinking, New York Rangers aren't so great this year. And the numbers for JT Miller aren't the best, but JT Miller is one of those players that I would run through a wall for. And if there is a dip in offensive production, he doesn't need to have a C on his chest for the USA. I know he has the C on his chest for the New York Rangers, but I do believe that JT Miller is one of those heart and soul guys who will deliver such a great locker room speech, you want to, and he will lead the guys out of there when they say, hey, 1, 2, 3 together, whatever they say in the locker room there. So JT Miller, I think that he is going to be returning for Team USA. The ninth forward that I do have is Matt Boldy. He's over a point per game player. The analytics match the production, playing with guys like Kirill Kaprizov as far as the forwards, and the Minnesota Wild are a wagon. Matt Boldy is definitely a big part of also that Kevin Fiala trade that brought him over that was Brock Faber, not Matt Boldy that brought him in. I'll get to Brock Faber a little later, but Matt Boldy is still a big part of that Minnesota Wild team that is competing in that Central Division. The next one is Kyle Connor, a 30 goal player, can get to 40 in some of his better years. He was scratched in the Team USA versus Canada final last year during the Four Nations. Although Matthew Tkachuk was a little hobbled, I'm sure that he would want some personal redemption and getting back into the team, into Team USA. Clayton Keller is my next one for Team USA. Big part of what is going on for the Utah Mammoth there, and I think that he is going to be play a big role possibly in the bottom six for Team USA. The next one I do have is Cole Caulfield. Can score 40 goals. There was one year where he was on pace to scoring 50, and then his season ended early. Is definitely a big part of what Montreal has got going. Chances are he might not play in every single game, but that is a goal scorer that you definitely have as a weapon for your team. The next one, Tage Thompson, was part of the World Championship, scored the golden goal there for Team USA, their first time winning the World Championships in over 50 years. So Tage Thompson the discussion for Team USA and a lot of the players is a lot of criticism their way of guys not going to World Championships even when their season is over. And Tage Thompson was one of those players to go, and he got rewarded there. And I think he will get rewarded this year for the U.S. Olympic roster. And then the last one, the one that people have been questioning the most, who I felt was also left off of last year's roster, who's having an outstanding season this year, I got to go with Jason Robertson of the Dallas Stars. So I think that he is going to be part of the Team USA roster. The Dallas Stars are an absolute wagon, 45 points in 39 games. He's a plus 13. He's on pace for a 46-goal season there, and is definitely going to get a big payday for the Dallas Stars. So defensemen, I'm going to go with Quinn Hughes and Charlie McAvoy are the two of the six players that were named for Team USA, and then some of the ones that are going to be repeat guys for Team USA, like Zach Wierenski. I think he's going to be there. Jacob Slavin, probably the best defensive defenseman in the NHL, who can compete with guys like Gustav Forsling there. So he has definitely name recognition. Also, he had an outstanding Four Nations face-off last year. Adam Fox is going to be another one that I believe is going to be on the team, right-handed shot. There was a lot of talk in the last few years about Adam Fox and just falling off from his from after winning the Norris Trophy. But you look at the New York Rangers in the production of when Adam Fox is on the ice versus when he is not. And I think that's why Adam Fox is going to have more of that runway, despite him not being at a Norris caliber of play as of recent years. Jake Sanderson has definitely been a guy who's exploded more. Although his plus minus wasn't the best last year, he still made the U.S. Roster for the Four Nations, and then he took that opportunity and definitely breeded so much confidence in him as the Ottawa Senators made the playoffs last year, and it has continued onto this year. So I think Jake Sanderson is going to be back with Team USA. And then the last one, call me a homer, but I do believe that Seth Jones is going to be part of this Team USA roster as far as the Olympics this year. So that would make 4 right-handed shots for Team USA. Those right-handed shots are Charlie McAvoy, Adam Fox, Brock Faber, and Seth Jones for Team USA. The goalies, I think it's going to be the same crew as last year with Connor Hellebuyck, Jake Ottinger, and Jeremy Swayman. Jeremy Swayman did go to the World Championships last year, so I do think that even though he has been up and down, he's definitely been more comfortable being the number 1 goaltender for the Boston Bruins. Connor Hellebuyck is back playing, and we've seen how much the Winnipeg Jets struggled when he was not in the crease. That although their scoring went a little dry, they couldn't get the saves to mask some of those issues. And Connor Hellebuyck being back is definitely a big boost. And then Jake Ottinger, part of the US NTDP, and he's definitely on his way to possibly being the starter in 2030, as he's still a very young goaltender for himself. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we're going to discuss Team Canada and the roster predictions that I have for them. We're going to discuss that and more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. And there's nothing like being near the ice during hockey season. The speed, the hits, the atmosphere, it's unmatched. Watching at home is great, but being in the building is a completely different experience. The only thing that used to get in the way was actually getting tickets. Long queues, endless screens, and prices that change at checkout. That's why the Gametime app gives the advantage back to fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NHL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I pulled up the Gametime app to check out NHL games and was surprised by how fast it was to find great seats. The app is incredibly easy to use, browsing, comparing, and buying tickets in just minutes. One of my favorite features is the view from my seat before buying, so I know exactly what I am getting. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. And I'd like to thank you guys once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Monday. And once again, we have our Everydayers Club. Go check that out. It's an access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Florida Panthers listeners, compatible with Apple, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. There's an invite to our Everyday Discord server, which includes group chats for listeners of the show. And make sure to tap the link below in the show notes to learn more. So continuing the conversation on Olympic roster predictions for both the USA and Canada. We just did the USA. Now we are going to do the Canadian roster. And the 5 forwards that I'm going to name are going to be the first 5 are the first 6, of the ones that were already named to Team Canada. So 5 of them were forwards, 1 of them were defensemen. So that's why I said 5 at the beginning. So Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, Braden Point, and Sam Reinhart were the 5 forwards of the 6 total members of Team Canada that were named to the first 6 of the roster. So the next guys that I do have as far as this are Mitch Marner, who the Team Canada was able to put him back on that top line, who got the game-winning assist to Connor McDavid for the game winner in overtime for the final in the Four Nations, coming from the far side corner. McDavid parked right in the slot right there. So, and Mitch Marner can play both ways of the ice, power play, penalty kill, on the point even, as he was the mostly running that when he was with the Toronto Maple Leafs right before the sign-and trade with the Vegas Golden Knights. Mark Stone, his teammate in Vegas, oh my goodness, the intensity that Mark Stone brings, the passion, who nobody sellies like Mark Stone when it comes to a goal, whether it's preseason, regular season, or Stanley Cup. As much as it hurt Panther fans to see him score multiple times in that series, I don't think you could leave Mark Stone off of this roster for Canada. Nick Suzuki, he's going to be a newcomer here, in my opinion, for Canada. Can play, won't be in the top 6, in my opinion, for the Canadians, but I do think that you can match him up with any line that the USA will put on the ice there. And I just think that I'm proud to say that I was wrong when it came to Nick Suzuki. For years, I was, even after they made their magical run to the Stanley Cup final, I was saying, I don't think that Nick Suzuki is a top line center, and he can produce, he can distribute, he can penalty kill, a lot of things. So Nick Suzuki, I do think that he is going to be part of this lineup for the Canadians. The 9th one I have is Mark Scheifele. He was left off of last year's Four Nations roster, but I do believe that it's the conversation and how much time he has spent in the NHL, a point per game player for most of his career. I do think that John Cooper and Doug Armstrong need to put a little bit of respect on Mark Scheifele and put him there with the team who I believe that he's going to be a very impactful player. Can play center. He's probably going to be shifted to the wing. A lot of players are going to be shifted to the wings who are natural centers. Nathan McKinnon is probably going to be one of those who are going to be shifting to the wing again, more than likely. Next one I have, depending on his health, Brandon Hagel. Well, he did return to the lineup for the Lightning on Sunday against the Habs, so he is looks like that he is healthy there, but can bring the grit, can be a net front presence, can be a pest on the boards as well. It's going to be interesting to see if he, along with other Florida Panthers players, are going to be on there. So to see how they could put their differences aside for just a few weeks. They did so back last February. I'm sure they'll be willing to do that again, just for the sake of trying to win an Olympic gold medal. So the next few I have are going to be, some of them are going to be head scratchers, and some of them are going to be like, interesting. Brad Marchand, I do believe he's going to be in. I do how he performed in the playoffs. I do think that Canada will have no choice but to bring him in. And with Sam Bennett's surge as of late, I don't think you can leave the Conn Smythe Trophy winner off of this roster neither. And also, Sam Bennett had a big goal in the championship game after being scratched in the first one. Let's not forget that. And then the last two, the 13th and 14th forward for Canada. First one is going to be Tom Wilson. That I know IIHF rules, and I know the suspensions, I know the rough play, but part of me wants to believe that Tom Wilson will tone it down a little bit and still play a style of a sandpaper power forward type of hockey that it won't necessarily affect them as far as ejections. I think that is a little bit of an overblown statement. And the last one, Macklin Celebrini of the San Jose Sharks. The second-year phenom did not win the Calder Trophy last year, but was still an outstanding story from last year going on to this year. And at one point in the beginning of the season, he was leading the race to the Art Ross. I know that's back and forth now between Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon, depending on what day it is. But I do believe that Macklin Celebrini is going to eventually make this Canadian Olympic roster. So for the defense, only one player was named of the 6 when it came to the defenseman for Team Canada, and that is because he happens to be the best defenseman in the NHL in Cale Makar. So one of the only one of the 6 named that is actually a defenseman. The other ones that I do have, you got to have his running mate there. It's not only a top pair on their club team, but a top pair on the Olympic team. Devon Toews, you have to have him there, in my opinion, as they were lethal in that 4 Nations just last year. Josh Morrissey is going to be another one, top defenseman for the Winnipeg Jets, can skate, can shoot from the point, can run a power play. I do believe he's going to be there as well. Colton Parayko, although he's on the older side, he is a little bit slower. I do believe that his experience, and although the fact that his GM is also his GM for his club team, I do believe that Colton Parayko's there. You will have you need a big body guy who will protect the net front and also win battles in the corners as well. So I do believe Colton Parayko is going to be there. Shea Theodore of the Vegas Golden Knights, I do believe he's going to be on the roster as well as a guy who is a good two-way defenseman for the Vegas Golden Knights after being one of the misfits from the expansion draft from the Anaheim Ducks during that year. Number 6 is going to be Jacob Chychrun, South Florida native, but for international play, he has played for Canada in the past, so he is registered there. So, and the fact that he's providing points from the blue line for the Washington Capitals, I do believe that he is going to be he's going to make that last ditch effort and is going to be part of the squad. Thomas Harley, although he has struggled this year, he definitely adjusted very well after he was a late add in last year's 4 Nations face-off. Remember, there was different rules for an NHL event versus an Olympic event, where the 25, once you get there, is the 25 that you got, versus the NHL could change their rules on the fly there. And let's not forget that Cale Makar at one point was sick during that 4 Nations. He didn't miss a game, but he had to step off the ice before Thomas Harley could even practice. It was a strange thing. And then the last one, I do believe that they're going to have Drew Doughty there. Probably his last ride. He's probably not going to play in every single game, but I do believe that Olympic experience that he's had from multiple Olympics back then, I do believe that he is going to be on the team this time around as maybe a little bit of a goodbye. The goalies is a very, very interesting one for Canada. I do believe that Jordan Binnington will be back. He has earned the right, although his season hasn't been well. He hasn't even been the best goalie on his own team. But I do believe that that Jordan Binnington will at least get the first start, and then we'll go from there. But the second and third goaltenders, I'm going to have Logan Thompson of the Washington Capitals. And listen, they got to put all their differences aside for that coaching staff. Apparently, there's a little bit of bad blood between the coaching staff, which has Bruce Cassidy in it, who Bruce has coached Logan Thompson in Vegas, and they had a little bit of a bad taste, but you got to let that go for the sake of the Olympics. And then on number 3 is going to be Scott Wedgwood. He wasn't even the projected starter for Colorado coming into the season, but the results are speaking for themselves, and he's going to earn a chance at being the third goaltender for Team Canada. I do think that's going to be the three-headed monster for Canada, although it's still very questionable. I will give the Team USA a little bit of the edge in goal, but forward and defense, I got to give it to Canada for sure. But in segment number 3, we are going to discuss some of the guys who are on the bubble, but I believe won't be on the team. But chances are, one of those guys that I have out are going to be in more than likely. We'll discuss more of that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Segment number 3 here on this Monday, December 29th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So here in segment number 3, we're going to talk about some of the guys who are not on the roster but have a chance possibly in the future for them, or maybe this is their last chance at being part of the team to begin with. So for Team USA, I'm going to start with the goalies. Man, a few years ago, we were saying that Thatcher Demko was going to be one of the 3 goalies for Team USA who was going to be part of this, but the injuries has definitely held him back. I do believe that he has been passed by the 3 goalies named in Hellebuyck, Ottinger, and Jeremy Swayman. Spencer Knight and Dustin Wolf are on track to be part of the roster in 2030, but the fact that both of those goalies are under siege quite a bit, especially Spencer Knight as of late, being without Connor Bedard and Frank Nazar, which I'll get to Connor Bedard a little bit later. But there's been a little bit of a struggle with Connor Bedard being out of the lineup. And John Gibson, he's aged and a little bit too up and down, and has spent a lot of those bad years in an Anaheim Ducks organization that has been overwhelmed. And although he is towards the top of the Atlantic with the Detroit Red Wings this year, I do believe it's a little bit of a too little too late for John Gibson to make the Olympic roster. So some of the other guys that I've out from last year: Chris Kreider, a guy who's a net front presence on the power play; Vincent Trocheck, who definitely can win a face-off in the defensive zone, I think he's at a 54% this season. But I do believe that you got to make a little bit of just some roster trims. And with Mike Sullivan being the coach, is this going to be a situation kind of like how Steve Yzerman did with Marty St. Louis in the 2014 Olympics when they went to Sochi? And then Steven Stamkos ended up getting hurt, and then Marty St. Louis ended up being on the Olympic roster after all. But there was a little bit of that of that tension between Marty St. Louis and Steve Yzerman at the time when the roster was submitted there in 2014. But will this be the case for Vincent Trocheck and Mike Sullivan, the coach? Brock Nelson was on last year's team. I do believe that it's not a fact of Brock Nelson, but just there's so many other players who have just performed so well that I can't justify leaving Jason Robertson off of this roster. Tage Thompson as well. And listen, also Cole Caulfield has multiple playoffs in him as well, a Stanley Cup final, and also the Montreal being a big part of the Montreal Canadiens being back in the playoffs after going through some rebuilding years. Lane Hudson, I do believe that the size is a little bit going to hurt him in a tournament like this. Although there's so much that he can grow from now until 2030, I do believe that when it comes to the speed of the Canadian forwards, I do believe that it's going to be too much for a young Lane Hudson to handle. Give me in a few years, I'll reevaluate when it comes to Lane Hudson. Though Hannafin was on last year's team for Team USA, but I do believe that he has been surpassed by other guys on the roster for Team USA. Like I mentioned, you can bring one more guy on the roster, and I do believe that Seth Jones, and the fact that he had a Stanley Cup run, a midseason ad for the Panthers, I do believe that it truly upped his stock. But chances are I could be wrong, and it's Noah Hannafin in the mix and not Seth Jones. I don't believe Patrick Kane is going to be on it. I know that's a really feel-good story for the best U.S.-born skater of all time, more than likely. I do believe that there's just so many better options in 2025 than Patrick Kane. John Carlson is one that I have out for the Team USA. I do believe that he's having a great season. The Washington Capitals can play defense, but it's just a matter of none of the other ones have really played themselves out of the roster. That's the thing. Alex DeBrincat, a forward for the Detroit Red Wings, has definitely upped his stock ever since being traded from Ottawa to Detroit. And although this is the first year that Detroit has been relevant in the last 7-8 years, which they still have not played a playoff game at Little Caesars Arena, I do believe that it's a little bit of a late surge for Alex DeBrincat to be on the roster. For Canada, Matthew Schaefer just recently got drafted number 1 overall from the New York Islanders. I think he's a really great story. He just recently entered the drug protocol for the Canadian Olympic team, so he's going to be in consideration. But I do think it's a little too early for Matthew Schaefer to be part of this team, so I don't think he's going to make it. But he will be part of the conversation in 2030. Bo Horvat, took a while for him to get going as far as is exploding on the scene. Although the New York Islanders, there's a lot better conversation there for New York as far as the last few years. But just the forwards for the Canadians, I do believe that it's going to be Bo Horvat that's going to be left out as one of those guys again. John Tavares, man, did he have a rough Olympics a few years ago? Well, not a few years ago, 12 years ago, where he broke his leg in the actual tournament. Um, and and when he was part of the New York Islanders, and I do believe that for him, the fact that he hasn't really taken over. Although sometimes William Nylander and Austin Matthews have struggled, John Tavares has definitely carried some of the load for Toronto, but I don't believe that he is going to be part of the team. And Connor Bedard, I do believe that the weeks missed due to the injury, although he is back at practice as of right now with the Blackhawks, I don't believe that he is going to be part of the team, but chances are I'm going to be wrong. And one of the forwards and probably I'm going to be wrong about Tom Wilson more than likely, and it's going to be Connor Bedard instead of Tom Wilson. I do believe maybe that conversation I'm wrong about when it comes to the rough play of Wilson, but if I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. But I wouldn't want Tom Wilson to miss out on this tournament, especially because he could still play well at 31 years old. So the defense for for Canada, I don't know why people keep mentioning Evan Bouchard, defensive liability, and the fact that Canada has so many guys who could play on the power play and match up against the opposition's best. I just don't trust Evan Bouchard. That plain and simple. Brandon Montour, definitely former Panther, Stanley Cup champion, has a chance, but again, he's definitely elevated his game since becoming the main guy on the power play for the Panthers through 2023 all the way to winning the cup in 2024, but it hasn't produced in the Seattle Kraken scoring. They're one of the worst offensives in the entire NHL. And again, there's a lot of options there for Canada as far as two-way defensemen. And Travis Sanheim, maybe he's a product of his own environment from what's going on in Philadelphia. Dan Vladar hasn't necessarily he's been up for the most part of the season, but he's been a little bit up and down as of late, now that he's getting a little bit of a bigger load this season. But the fact that other guys for the Canadian Olympic team and really goes credit to Jacob Trickern for the season that he's had, and I don't believe that you can leave him off. And unfortunately, I believe that Travis Sanheim is going to be the odd man out as far as the defense. And the last one, goalies. Man, it's really head scratching, the state of Canadian goaltending. But again, they won the Four Nations last year with Jordan Binnington playing at his absolute best for Canada and making a big save right before that golden goal by Connor McDavid. But there's guys who played well at times, like Darcy Kemper, but they were a success at home, but now they can't find a way to win at home this season. So he is likely not going to be on the team, in my opinion. Sam Montembeault has been more down than he has up. Now the Habs are running a 3 goalie rotation as well. And Adin Hill, he's been hurt for the Vegas Golden Knights. And when the Panthers played the Vegas Golden Knights, they did not face Adin Hill in either of their matchups. Neither did they face Carter Hart, who was not eligible to be with the team until December 1st with his suspension. And Carter Hart has also been away for reasons off the ice, so he hasn't created that runway and had enough games to prove that he is going to be part of the Olympic team. Neither. Maybe in the future, if he plays to what he was when he was with the Philadelphia Flyers. So we will see there. But I do believe that it's going to be a goaltending room of Binnington, Logan Thompson, and Scott Wedgwood, the guy that a lot of people didn't see making the team, but look at him now there. But hey, we'll see where these rosters compare from the time of the release, which Canada will be announcing their roster on December 31st on New Year's Eve. And then the USA will actually announce their full lineup on the Today Show this Friday, January 2nd, the same day that the Florida Panthers and the New York Rangers will be playing in the 2026 Winter Classic. And then the very next week, we will discuss our comparison from the prediction to the actual rosters. So that's going to do it for today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Make sure to come back for Tuesday's edition of the show as we will recap Monday night's game between the Florida Panthers and the Washington Capitals. In the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.